In this edition of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, we visit with Brian Callahan, offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, as we've done over and over and over again. Win, lose, or draw, Brian Callahan is there. And Brian Callahan always sheds some light on what took place. And he'll do the same thing about the Super Bowl, about Joe Burrow, about what's ahead in the future, free agency, draft, everything that's coming up. But first, I'm going to take a well-earned break and head to some fun in the sun in Florida. I think you'd really enjoy Brian Callahan. You're in the trenches once again with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, and special guest, very special guest. Honored to have this gentleman as a guest, offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, and you've been so generous with your time all season long, Coach. First thing I want to do is thank you for that. I mean, whenever we've asked, you've responded in a big way, and thank you so much.
You got it. It's always a pleasure to be in the trenches with you, Dave.
So I guess that leads us to my first question. You know, the Super Bowl, obviously, in the trenches was a big deal, and there's no question about it. And you got a superstar. I mean, Aaron Donald. Coach, I'm watching tape of Aaron Donald, and I'm watching his hands. It is mesmerizing. I don't know if I'm watching a martial arts class or if I'm watching football. This dude's hands are ridiculous.
I think it always reminds me when it must have been a Hard Knocks at some point. But do you remember when they used to do? He did put that video out when he was fighting somebody with knives. That's
yes.
He's I think the best thing about him and what you appreciate him as a player is I think he zones in on his craft, and he's been on a mission to be the best player at his position maybe ever. And you see it. You see all the things that he puts the work into it. And he's a dynamic pass rusher. He's got unbelievable hands, quickness, understanding of his role within the defense, within the stunts, within the rush. You can't say enough good things about him. I mean, I believe he's probably the most dominant defensive football player in the last 5 years at least, as a guy that just causes everybody he plays against problems. I mean, you don't turn the tape on at any point and see anybody blocking him well. And that's a discouraging thing when you're getting ready to play him in a game, but you just know you're in for a long day when you play him, and you help wherever you can as often as possible.
In the first half, both teams gave up a quarterback sack. It was one sack apiece, allowed or gained, or whatever, however you want to term it, at halftime. But then in the second half, they allowed one. The Bengals allowed 6. What was it? Just their execution sharpened? Did they make any kind of an adjustment based on protections you had shown in the first half to get better one-on-one matchups? Did they do anything differently, or was it just better execution by them and lesser execution by the Bengals?
I think it's a little bit of both. They definitely got us twice. 2 of those sacks, they presented us fronts that we weren't able to help on any players, and one of them in the low red zone there was a sack because Joe had expected TB to break one way, he broke the other, so it forced him to double clutch the ball and hold it, and that's enough time for those guys to get home. But the front they presented to us, we call it a split mug front, and so it's in their normal 4-down structure. So there was the 4D linemen in their normal gaps, and they take the Mike linebacker and they just put him right over the top of the center. And there's really, the way that look presents, there's only one way. There's multiple ways to block it, but for the amount of times that we saw it on tape, we ended up in basically a 5-on-5 call, and that put Aaron Donald 1-on-1 with Akeem Adeniji, and Donald decided to take that, one of the rare 1-on-1s he had probably in the whole game, and he just bull rushed Akeem back into Joe, and again the route forced Joe to hold the ball just an extra split second, and that's all you need against those guys to give up a sack. The second sack was another good schematic adjustment. They started in their 5-down front. It was a 3rd down, and they jumped into what we call an Okie front, and we basically had 2 outside of each tackle. It was a 5-man rush, and they collapsed those ends inside on really, really difficult angles and speed, and the pocket just collapsed on us on that one. So 2 times where they did a nice job of scheming their front up to get one-on-ones across the board, whereas probably most of the game our determination was to not let 99 have one-on-ones as much as humanly possible because he wins those just about every time. So Two good schematic adjustments on their part, force us into calls that we didn't want to be in, but at some point you got to be in those. And then at the end of the day, probably didn't protect long enough or good enough to win that game.
The thing that people, I think everybody understood, phenomenal pass rushers. I mean, they were number one in the NFL in pass rush win rate, which says all you need to know, I guess, when you look at the analytics. But they also play the run very well. I mean, they were sixth in the NFL in the regular season against run, fifth in the NFL in yards allowed per rush. So, the old saying is you earn the right to rush the passer by stopping the run, controlling the run. I thought that, there were moments where you guys really handled the run game pretty darn well, but the 3rd and 1s and the 4th and 1, that short yardage run game, they stood up pretty stout in those areas, didn't they?
Yeah, we had some success running the ball. Probably we felt like we were going to have some success running the ball going into the game. And we got ourselves into some spots in the second half where we popped a couple good ones. But then at the moments where we really needed to get positive yardage, we ran a few times on 1st and 10 and ended up, with a 0 or 1 yard gain. And now you're in 2nd and 10. And then we had a couple short yardage spots that we could have executed better across the board. And so when we really needed to be great in the run game, I thought we were just okay. And but we did find some success on the ground throughout the course of the game, more than most teams had on them in the recent weeks. Certainly in the playoffs, I think they were holding people to like 50 yards rushing a game. So, that's why they're the world champions. They're a fantastic defense with really two of the best defensive line players in the history of football between Aaron Donald and Von Miller. Von Miller was a Super Bowl MVP and a 2nd overall pick and a dynamic player, franchise-changing player in Denver. Aaron Donald's been the same for the Rams, and they put them both in the same team. And then added Leonard Floyd, who was also a 1st-round pick, right, to that front. And Gaines does a great job inside. He's kind of the tough glue that holds that group together. But they are fantastic. And again, we felt like we had enough answers, enough chances to win that game, and it's going to stick with us for a long time. But we ultimately didn't get it done.
In the 3rd quarter, Coach, you guys outscore them 10-3. You come right out, have a 1-play drive to start the second half in the 3rd quarter there with that 75-yard touchdown pass to Higgins. What is it about the 3rd quarter with regular season and now all the postseason combined? Outscore the opponent by 87 points in the 3rd quarter. That is just a phenomenal number. Adjustments, better execution, combination. What goes on when you guys come out of the locker room in that second half?
All of that, there's, I think there's been moments in this year because of the type of skill players that we have, where we don't necessarily always get the types of defenses that they show on tape. They play a little bit different structure because they're worried about Jamar. And I think everybody that's played against Jamar thinks they can cover him until they got to play against him. And then after the game, I think they all realize that, boy, this guy's for real. He's really difficult to handle. So he generates that type of respect, especially for the teams that we played a second time. And he generates looks that we may not necessarily see on you're looking at your 1st and 10 tape and we're getting looks that teams don't play on 1st and 10 because they're worried about Jamar and TB. They're worried about our skill players. And so sometimes there's an adjustment period over the course of a game, things that we think we might get, we don't. And then we're always one of the best parts about our offense and the players on our offense is that they never panic when things don't go right, or they don't panic when the looks change. And we make adjustments, and we have a system that's set up to be flexible and adaptive to whatever we see. We can get to a lot of things very quickly. We don't necessarily have to have them all on the call sheet. And I think that's a testament to our guys' intelligence and ability to adapt. And, we find ways to get it going. And sometimes it takes us more time than we would like. And I think I said the other day, I would much rather have that 1st quarter look like that than the 3rd quarter. It'd be nice to get out in front of some people and play with the lead for a while, but that's something that we'll look at over the course of the off season. But yeah, definitely have a great ability to adjust. And when things go wrong, we don't panic, and our guys go out there and find the answers and go execute at a high level when it's needed. So I'm not surprised that that's what our 3rd quarter stats are, but we definitely would like to see that in the 1st quarter too.
And I guess that no panic from a player perspective is personified by number 9. I mean, Joe Burrow's that guy, he's unflappable. How comforting is that when you're on the headset with Joe and you're making adjustments, and it's just absolutely, hey, business as usual. Here's what we got to do. Let's forget about this. Let's do that. And the adjustments that you're making. And he's just absolutely, he's not losing his mind. He's totally composed. He's absorbing everything that you're telling him. How big a deal is that for a coach?
It just makes everything easier, and a lot of times he's got opinions too, and he's very clear about what he thinks is going to work as well. And we tend to listen to those things too. It's great that you have a guy that can process the information and give you feedback when it's needed, and can take whatever coaching you give him and apply it immediately. That's the mark of a great player. And I think that Joe obviously is all of those things, and he makes our ability to adjust really easy, because he doesn't have to. There's nothing about him that has to have reps invested or have practice during the week. If we feel like we got a play that's going to work, he goes, all right, let's do it, and he can go execute it without maybe practicing it all week. So things that obviously we do well. We know it's not like it's a new thing for him, but he can adjust and adapt with the best of them because of his ability just to process and to not panic and just go in and, all right, this is what we're going to do, and let's go get it done.
You were around multiple great quarterbacks, and Joe is playing at such a high level. I mean, fans are like, oh, I'd be good to see Joe just, continue at that. If he's plateaued, I'm good as long as he can do it for another 10 years. But you saw guys like a Peyton Manning played at a very high level and then continued to advance, at that level. Is Joe Burrow that type of quarterback? Even though he's playing at a high level early in his career, is there room for him to even play at a higher level and maintain that?
Oh, absolutely. He's still, you do have to remind yourself occasionally, because he's so composed and really, I guess, wise beyond his years to some degree. But he's only in his second year. Just finished his second year of football. He hasn't played 2 full seasons yet. And yeah, there's always room to grow and get better. And some of that's going to be subtle. It may not be dramatic changes to his game or anything like that. It may be him seeing a blitz for the 4th or 5th time and knowing immediately what's happening, where the weakness in the coverage is. And it might be a footwork thing. It might be an upper body thing. And for him, this offseason will be big, because he's not rehabbing. He gets to go full into the offseason. Physically, he's got to recover because it's been a long year. But you get a full off season of time and film work and all the things that you want to get better at. And Joe's constantly working on his craft, and I think that's what's going to serve him really well as he moves forward. And it's the mindset that there's always something to get better at, and he has that mindset. And he'll always find something to work on and improve. And you add years of doing that, and you end up in a pretty good place when you're in your 15th or 18th or 20th year at that point.
And that sounds great. 20
Yes, it
years
does.
of Joe Burrow, 18 more years of Joe Burrow. I'll sign. Where do I sign for that contract, Coach? That dog right there, big time. That would be awesome. I know. You have looked at the tape and absorbed everything, and I know it's still painful. And I've never even watched the Super Bowl that I played in that we lost. I've never watched it in its entirety. I'll watch snippets of it and quarter of it or whatever, and that's about all I can take at a time.
Yeah.
But when you have done that and gotten and processed it, is there a thing or two in hindsight and retrospect? I mean, when I watch the portions I watch, it's like, oh, if I just done this, if I done that a little better. And I'm sure every player, every coach is thinking the same thing. Is there 1 or 2 things in your mind that if you can pinpoint and say, if we'd just done that, might have been a different outcome? Or there's so many that you can't pinpoint?
I think that's natural after any loss, any tight loss that you have over the course of the season. This one is just magnified because of the stage, and it's the last one. So you don't get to pick yourself up and go get ready for another game. It's over. It's final. The season is done, and that's always hard to swallow. There's definitely things that over the course of a game that if we'd done differently, maybe we are in a better position at the end of the game. I thought the biggest play, I think, to me was the 3rd down in the red zone after the interception, where we end up getting sacked on a route that Tyler had the option on to break in or break out. He broke in, thought he could beat the leverage. He didn't, cause Joe to double clutch it. And really, if he breaks out and he reads the leverage and he feels it a little bit differently, he breaks out and we complete that ball, and it's probably going to be a 1st down, and it might even score. So those are the plays where you're like, oh, it's just, it's one or two things over the course of a game in a Super Bowl when you're playing against a great team that you don't have to be perfect, but you got to play well more than you play poorly. And I think we just had probably a handful of things that we could have done better. Again, that's every game you play. It's not new or unique to this one, but certainly there's places in the game where if we had one or two things go differently, that we might have been in a better position at the end of the game.
Yeah, I remember in the pregame show and leading up to the Super Bowl, Zach had this saying a comment where it was like, one thing I really like about our football team, we have been masters of situational football, and for the most part. And when you look at it in the Super Bowl, like you mentioned, after the interception, the short field at the 30, got the ball at the 31-yard line and settled for a field goal. The 4th and 1, the defense allows a touchdown on a short field, 50-yard field, instead of holding them to a field goal. So red zone, they're 3 for 3 in the red zone. We're 1 for 3 in the red zone. 3rd down, 3rd and short, 3rd and long for the defense. A lot of these situational things didn't fall your way in the Super Bowl, whereas during the course of the season, a lot of the situational things did. Do you think that was a huge factor in the outcome?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're going against a team that goes 3 for 3 and you go 1 for 3 in a red zone, that's always going to be the biggest difference in the game because, I thought after that interception, we had a chance to put them away and really open the lead up to one that was going to put them in a spot they didn't want to be in. But we didn't. We ended up having to settle for a field goal. We don't make that 3rd down conversion, and we got to kick it. And again, we'll take the points. Points are points, but in games like that, when you get a chance to put a dagger in somebody at that point in the game, you got to be able to do that, and we didn't. And sometimes it is as simple as they scored on 3 of their possessions, and we scored on 1 of them, and that's how you lose 23-20. And really, we played pretty well as far as took care of the football. We didn't turn it over. We were efficient and did a lot of good things. And at the end of the day, just didn't have enough points on the board to win the game. And that's always going to come down to your execution in the red zone. And we were probably not at our standard over the course of the playoffs. Now, again, you're playing good defenses. When you get to the playoffs, these are the best defenses in the league. They're good in the red zone. That's why they're in the playoffs. But,
right.
We probably didn't execute in the red zone as good as we had at points during the year. There's more points on the field than we probably put on the scoreboard over the course of the three games in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. So disappointing, certainly, but that's where you got to make up your ground is you got to score points in the red zone.
Yeah, and then the +2 in the turnover department, like you said, no giveaways. I mean, that's phenomenal to be able to achieve that in the Super Bowl is no giveaways, 2 takeaways. But then I think those 2 takeaways are the 2 interceptions the defense was able to get. And how about the defense? 8 interceptions in 4 playoff games. That's crazy. But the 2 4th and 1s, in my mind, are equivalent to turnovers. Possession doesn't end with a kick, a punt, a field goal, or an extra point. So in my mind, it was even kind of in that regard. And that's when red zone and those kind of things really start to be a determining factor.
Yep, I agree with that. The short yardage performance was, we had two critical spots, one on the first drive of the game and then one at the last drive of the game where,
right.
We get a first down to either one of those spots. Who knows? Maybe the first drive of the game we go down and kick field goal. Maybe the drive stays alive. I mean, we're right around midfield. Then obviously the last play of the game, if we can keep the drive going, we're almost in field goal range there with probably another 5 to 10 yards with a chance to tie to go to overtime at the minimum. So those are big moments in games. And when it comes down to who wins and who loses in a big spot like that, it's always going to be who makes those plays in the critical spots. And for really what felt like one of the first times all year, we didn't make those. We made them in bunches over the course of the season, and we didn't make them in a big spot when we needed it.
It just seems like roster wise, this football team is well put together. I honestly thought the Rams, they're a good team, but they're really a good team because they've got a handful of like superstar type guys, like top echelon guys. But the balance of the roster from top to bottom, I didn't think was as strong as the Bengals from top to bottom. And their star players, their superstars made plays, obviously, that were a big factor in determining the outcome of the football game. But looking at this team and got another sign your own free agents, go out and get maybe a couple of others from other teams in the draft. I mean, how bright is the future?
It feels like we're in a really good spot. And, it's difficult to go run it back, as they say, and try to get it back. I mean, it is really hard to do. Things got to go your way. You got to stay healthy. All the things got to be. You got to play really well again. And this time, you're no one's surprised by you either. You know, you got a target on your back. You've now become. We've become now the hunted. You know what I mean? It's a different feel.
Yep.
And I do think that one of the things that's always been great about the Cincinnati Bengals as an organization is they've always been with an eye towards the future. You know, there's never been a moment where they've mortgaged the future of the organization for a moment. And they've always been really, really smart about how they spend their money. And that's a big deal. You know, when you're smart about free agency and you always have cap room, and every time you look up, you know, where the Bengals are in the top 10 in cap space, and we're poised to be able to go add a lot of good players and both re-sign our own players that need to be re-signed. And so I feel really good about the spot we're in with our cap. I feel great about our ability to draft good players. We've done a really good job here over the last 3 years. You know, and Duke's track record over his career has been pretty remarkable when you look at it. The types of draft picks he's hit on over his career as you know, the guy kind of in charge of the personnel with Mike. And you know, it's a sustainably built team, and it's a team that we can continue to get better. We'll continue to build depth. We'll continue to try to find guys that can help us and bring the right people in the building on the team to try to do it again and to try to keep getting better. And you know, the biggest thing is we got great young talent on rookie contracts, so it allows us some flexibility to go buy some players and continue to build our depth in the draft, and you know, hopefully have a good team for years to come. And I think that we're set up to do that. And we got to put the work in. You know, we got to evaluate right still. We got to hit in the draft. We still got to bring the right free agents in. We got to have the right people here, and that process begins here shortly. But I mean, I feel really good about where we're headed and how we can get there because of the sustainability of how we built our roster.
You know, success breeds opportunity, and you know, you've been interviewed for a head coaching opportunity. So did Lou Anarumo get interviewed. Al Golden gets the chance to go to Notre Dame as defensive coordinator for a 3-year contract up there. But do you think that for the most part, this coaching staff will probably return pretty much intact? And I've seen, fortunately, in a lot of cases, our radio booth is right next to the coach's booth. We'll throw them away a few times. And I've seen you guys, how you guys are before games, you know, as a group, after games as a group. That's a close group. You coaches are very, very tightly knit. Do you feel like all hands will be on deck come next year?
Yeah, everything's. I could speak offensively. Our offensive staff will be intact.
Right.
Obviously, we lost Al to an opportunity. You know, this will be the 4th year now in a row where all of our coordinators are intact, along with the head coach. That's a big deal. There's a lot of continuity there that goes a long way. And I love working with our staff. We got a great staff. We got good coaches, guys that work hard, smart coaches. I love going to work every day with them, and it's a hell of a group on all sides of the ball, and special teams included. And I got a lot of confidence in our guys to do their job. I got a lot of confidence in our guys to get our players in the right positions, and it's a lot of fun. And I'm happy that we'll all be working together still for another year. And every year is a new year, and you take it one year at a time. And as everybody, as you have success, you know, opportunities come up for people all across the board. And I mean, look no further than the Rams. You know, look how many guys they've lost over the course of the last 4 years. I mean, it feels like they lose a coordinator every year. And that's the tip of the cap to Sean and his ability to keep his ship running the way he wants it, even though he's losing guys every year. I think that's a great testament to how he runs his program. But that's what happens when you have success. I mean, everybody comes looking for why you had success, and they try to sign your players, your coaches, all those things when they get a chance to. So it's really a testament to how well our guys have invested in the process. And when the success happens, that's what they want to see. They want people that have been a part of it.
Longest season in NFL history. So basically, some franchises have a 6-week head start on the Bengals coaches and organizational people in terms of free agency, draft, all those sort of things. In terms of coaches' involvement, I mean, the scouts and all that aspect of they can do their thing at the Senior Bowl, and Zoom's a big factor. Obviously, it's something that's it's a very, very useful tool, obviously, but that now having to compress. I mean, the combine's in 2 weeks. And you guys deserve vacation. You're going to take some vacation, and well-earned, well-deserved.
I sure am.
Yeah, but you're going to head to Florida, right?
Yeah, I sure am. I'll be gone. I'll be about a week vacation down in Florida.
There you go. Fun in the sun. That's awesome.
Yep.
everything's compressed now. I mean, how difficult is it to play catch up as such, or is there even playing catch up? Do organizations, is that overrated? I mean, that 6-week period, guys aren't grinding. I mean, a lot of guys probably take vacation during that time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's we're going to be we'll end up right on track at some point. You know, we'll make a little bit of hay in the catch up part, and we'll focus all of our energy probably on the free agency part first. You know, because that's what comes up the fastest. So the way that the Zooms and the pro days, you can catch up on the draft stuff. That's not that big a deal, and we will, and we'll focus on this part of the offseason from here until the draft is all player acquisition. It's always going to be our heaviest focus. We don't worry about the scheme. We don't worry about the football. It's all about player acquisition and getting our team better. So we'll pour into it, and we'll get caught up. Thankfully, our scouting staff does a great job. They'll have the prep work done, and they'll have their thoughts and rankings on all these guys to start, and then we'll just offer our opinions as is needed. But those guys do a great job of getting the table set, if you will, for that process to begin, and we'll jump in and catch up. But it's not detrimental. We're not anywhere further away than most people are. You get a little bit extra time, but at the draft stuff when you end in early January. But I'll take that trade off every year if that's the case. I'm happy to keep playing football and not do personnel stuff well into February every year if that's the case. I got no problem with that.
I guess, Coach, it's obvious. I know as a former lineman, I can sympathize with offensive line being criticized. I mean, it's like you're out there doing everything you can, and you get blamed for everything. Been there, done that. Get blamed for everything. Yep. And like Zach said in a presser that I heard yesterday, the offensive line, they were on a Super Bowl team. The offensive line got the team. Part of the reason the team was in the Super Bowl. So some things had to be done right. But I guess it is safe to say with the skill players you have, if there can be improvements made, up front, obviously that's got to be a focus in the offseason in terms of free agency in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, anytime that's the spot on offense for us that we feel was good at points of the year, and at points of the year was probably not as good as we want it to be.
Yep.
The numbers are going to say what they say. Those guys they played hard. They fought hard. They did everything they could do to help us win games. It's not an indictment of them as how they played. I mean, those guys played tough. They played hard. And again, we found a way into the Super Bowl with the players that we had. So I don't think you ever sit back at the end of a year, even if we had won this game, and feel like you've arrived. You always step back and take a critical eye at your team and where you think you have to be better. And we'll do that. And sometimes guys need development. They need more time getting better, getting coached. Sometimes you need to draft more players. Sometimes you need to sign free agents. Those things all go into effect, and we'll take our time and get through that process on where we feel like we can improve the most. But I do think it is that those guys get a lot of unfair criticism, and sack numbers and all those things get blown up sometimes. And again, they're not always their fault. There's coverage sacks. There's missed protections by backs. There's quarterbacks holding the ball. There's Joe scrambling for a 0-yard gain that goes down in a sack. And so those things are you take them with a grain of salt. And you find out really when you start evaluating your offense on where you can get better and how you can get better. And we'll do that, and we'll find those spots, over the course of the next, really what ends up being month and a half or so as free agency starts.
Coach, take me through the process when you do start getting to the X's and O's part of it. I mean, you guys have so much football knowledge from an X and O standpoint. And when you're tweaking your offensive playbook, your total package, I mean, you game plan on a weekly basis, but the big playbook, I mean, how do you go through? I mean, there's so many things that you guys could probably throw up on a board as such. Is it just kind of tweaking you've got your base things you really like and you want to tweak, or do you think about adding to the base, or what's that process like, that give and take?
Yeah, you try to find, you watch it and you confirm what was good, where were we good, what plays were really efficient, by concept, what was our completion percentage, what was our production. You try to find the numbers and all of it that validate what you think. What run schemes were good for us, what ones weren't good for us, and then the things that were good, you determine why they were good. Was it Was it the scheme? Was it the actual play, or was it guys just playing good football together? And then the run game is the same way. Protections is the same way. Where is it that we were good? Why were we good there? And then you look at when you were bad. What, some of the things that didn't have the production you want them to have. Well, why didn't they? Maybe it's a player fit. Maybe the scheme for the players that we had, it wasn't good enough, and we got away from it and didn't do it as much. But it's kind of a holistic process. You just dive into the tape, you watch it, you see with your eyes, you make your notes, you look at the numbers, let the numbers tell you the story too, and then you decide what our core is, which we got a pretty good feel for going into year 4. We know what our core system is, and then you study the league too. And you watch around the league who was really good in certain areas. What did they do different than everybody else? Why were they better? Why was this team the number 1 team in the red zone this year? What did they do that was unique? And you try to find things that you can absorb into your playbook, or maybe there's nothing. Maybe it's like, hey, they got really good players and those guys made a lot of plays for them. Right. Sometimes that happens too. So it's a top to bottom process, but we feel really good about the core of our system, what we have in place, how we have it set up, and how we put our guys in position to make plays. And we'll continue to try to tweak and get better, just like everybody does every year, on what could help us moving forward to win 3 or 4 more games or be better in a situation, whatever that may be.
Everybody says, "Oh yeah, boy, just run it back." It's like a given. Well, it's the National Football League, in New England, for example, Brady and Belichick. You got generational quarterback, generational head coach, but that division was terrible for a bunch of years. They had no real competition in the AFC East. I mean, they dominated that division. And that gets you in the playoffs every single year. Now they finished it. They went to the Super Bowl and won their share of Super Bowls. Obviously, I mean they did a great job there. But honestly, in the AFC North, Baltimore, when healthy and their quarterback's healthy, they had, I think, 10 starters end up on injury reserve.
Yep.
If Pittsburgh can find a quarterback with that defense and the running game with Najee Harris, and they find a quarterback, the AFC North. It's not like playing in the AFC East when Bill Belichick and Brady were dominating. Your first goal, obviously, and a significant goal, is to win the AFC North, and that ain't easy, right, Coach?
No, and we felt confident that if we could win the AFC North, we could make a run to the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And that's not anything new, and I think every team that's come out of the AFC North has been in position to do that over the last couple of years, and really over the history of the division, to be honest. But I think that we have great coaches in this division. There's great players in this division, and it's a tough, hard-nosed, rugged division where they don't give shit to you. Sorry, but
I hear you.
They don't. And you got proud teams and proud organizations that know success and know what it looks like, and that's what makes it great. That's how these teams. I think when they come into the season, if you win this division, you got a chance to win the whole thing because you are battle tested against some really good teams and good players, and everyone's going to start over. It's not going to, this year doesn't mean anything anymore. It's over. And the whole rest of the division is going to do the same. And they're all going to get better too. They still have free agency and draft picks at their disposal. And it wasn't like Baltimore is bad. They got great players. They just had a bunch of them hurt. Yep. Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh. They're always going to be a battle. And really Cleveland to me is the one that gets a little bit overlooked because they might be the most talented team in the whole division when it comes down to it. So, I just think that you reset your focus and you go, all right, the path to the playoffs runs through the division, and if you can win the division, you got a chance to go win the whole thing. And I think that's always going to be the case because whatever team comes out of this division is going to be a tough out for whoever has to play them. And it's a competitive, tested division, battle tested division, and with histories of a lot of success. And so. Man, it's a lot of fun, but it's not easy, and it won't be. So we got to get ready to go do it again.
I hear you. The highs and lows, the ups and downs, Coach, of this 21-22 season. What was it about the football team in hindsight as you go retrospectively over the course of the season? What characteristic, what one thing, or what thing most impressed you about your offensive football team on a week-to-week basis?
I think just that the highs and lows never affected them. They never wavered in their approach. They never wavered in their mindset. When things went well, they stayed the same. When things went poor, they were still the same. they were consistent. And I think that as an NFL player and an NFL offensive unit, I think that's what you hope for, is to find as much consistency as possible and avoid riding that roller coaster of ups and downs and emotions and all those things. That's probably the biggest thing, the consistency. The second one is their confidence, at a time when probably not, people believe in us now, but there was a lot of different points in the year where they didn't. And I think our guys always believed in what they were capable of, and they had a great confidence about them. And it starts with the quarterback, but they knew all along that we could be really good. And I think really, even you back up to last year, I think in 2020, our guys felt like they could be really good too. We just weren't quite there yet. And but they've never wavered. They've always felt like that we could be one of the best offenses in football. And I don't think that's going to change at all. I think our guys really believe that.
Coach, another thought on this football team is people handle losing probably sometimes better than they handle winning. Handling winning is an underrated thing. A lot of guys would be like, oh, I've arrived. I'm the guy. I'm this. I think with this quarterback who's been in the big stage and has handled winning his whole life and handled it beautifully, I think, for him to be the ringleader, I don't think there's going to be a big problem there. I think guys are going to be like, you know what? We didn't get done ultimately like what we wanted to get done. So let's go back and get after it again the same way we get after it. Maybe we can improve a few things along the way.
That's what makes him great. He's never satisfied. And I think that when you win, you can become satisfied. And I can tell you, I know for a fact that Joe is never satisfied. I know that I'm never satisfied. And I think we got a lot of people of the same mindset. And when it's time to come back and put the work in, we'll do that and get ready to go again. But that's a big part of it, is that you're always dealing with two things. I think John Fox used to say this all the time, and it always stuck with me, is you're either dealing with adversity or prosperity. There's really no in between. Either things aren't going well and you got to fight through it, or things are going real well and you got to figure out how not to let that affect you. And so that's kind of the nature of pro sports, I think, and you're always dealing with those two things. And the teams that handle both of those things the same way are consistent in the way they approach their preparation and their play are the ones that handle it the best. And I think our guys have proven they've been able to handle that, and I think they will for the foreseeable future.
Coach, I can't thank you enough for making yourself available to us like you did all season long. I mean, you answered the bell every single time we put out a request, and you're a special guy for doing that, and you're a special football coach, and congratulations on a great run. I mean, a heck of a season, AFC Championship. It's just unbelievable, and so many great people deserving of that, and you being right on top, Coach.
Appreciate that. Thank you. It's always fun to come on, and it's some days are easier than others. When you're winning, it's easy, and when you're losing, it's a little harder. But I've always felt like you guys do a great job of highlighting our team and covering our team and giving life to the stories of the guys that are on our team. And I think that goes a long way to connecting with the fans. I think it's all part of the process, and so. I always enjoy coming on and hoping to provide insight and shed some light on the things that I think are helpful for our team to be highlighted about. And so thanks for doing your job the way you do it.
Well, you certainly do provide that information to highlight it, Coach, and nobody does it any better. Enjoy some fun in the sun. You certainly deserve that as well. Use your sunscreen, though, Coach.
No, there's no doubt. No, don't need any skin cancer around here.
I hear that.
At First Star Logistics, we're a very strict company that really puts the pressure on our employees. Brakes? What are those?
That's what I'm talking about, Icky. Get the body right, then the mind's right.
Gotta get that body right.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Become a star with a chance to earn the highest commission percentages in the industry as a freight broker agent. Check out firststarlogistics.com.